Welcome to the Beyond Jiu Jitsu podcast. I am your co-host, Kieren Lefebvre. I'm a white belt under the great and powerful Adam Charles.
That would be me, minus the powerful. I've never been called powerful before, but I'll take it.
Your jiu-jitsu is pretty powerful.
No, my jiu-jitsu often gets complimented with the whole, you've got really long legs.
Yes.
I think we spoke about that.
It's 30 seconds in and we've already hit a nerve.
I think we spoke about that. Yeah, but
we did, yes.
You get the whole like, oh man, you're so strong.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was banter from a previous episode.
Speaking of previous episodes, if you didn't catch our last episode number 14.
14 it was.
Yeah, we spoke all about technical mistakes.
Specifically from lower belts.
Yeah, lower belt. The 5 most common technical mistakes that Adam has seen for lower belts. But today's episode, what are we talking about, Adam?
Bro, we're going to hear a little bit about the old Kieren Lefebvre. That would be you, where you've come from, how you got from the womb to here.
Yeah, so this podcast starts back in 1995. It was a cold Friday morning.
No, we're going to... we did a few episodes back. I can actually tell you what episode it was. What was it?
6.
7. Come on, bro.
Oh.
We did a little bit about my time in Brazil, and not like my origin story as in my life story, but a little bit about my trip to Brazil. But we're going to find a little bit.
But trippy means 5 years.
My 5 years in Brazil, yeah. But we're going to talk a little bit more about your history, bro. So
my trip to Brazil.
I've
never been to Brazil.
But, when we, at the start of each episode and we introduce ourselves and whatever, you often just say, oh, I'm a white belt and this. And I kind of have to always say, no, man, you're more than that. You do, ex-bodybuilder, nutritionist, you were in the Navy, personal trainer, videographer, a lot of stuff. Obviously it all didn't happen at once.
I thought you were about to say, obviously it all didn't work out.
Yeah, yet to be decided.
Oh, shit. Where's this
Podcaster.
Speaking of, join our Patreon.
Oh, yeah. Good plug. Good segue.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, I just want to, not only give the listeners a chance to find out a bit more about you, but there's things that I know just from our time together, but there's actually lots of stuff I don't know and things that I'm generally interested in and I find entertaining, such as, bodybuilding or anything exercise related.
Yeah.
Things in the Navy I find quite interesting, not because I'm a military person, but it's just, the military in general has really like progressive technologies and things like that I find interesting. So I want to hear a little bit about that. So I don't need to know about your childhood because I hate kids. No, but let's just go back to what I think is probably the first thing in the relevant timeline, which would be you joining the Navy, I assume. So how old were you when you joined the Navy and why did you join the Navy? Like, do you come from a military family or?
No. Yeah, good questions. So I joined the Navy when I was, I think, just turned 20. I was just turned 20 years old. And it was in 2015. I was in the mid-year intake. I joined, first of all, what I was in the Navy as. I joined as a maritime warfare officer.
Is that what you like from the beginning?
Yes.
So you applied as that position or?
Just to rewind a little bit, I did apply for that position, yes. But to rewind, the reason I joined or wanted to join the Navy is because from a very young age, I always wanted to join the ADF. But originally, like a lot of young kids, I wanted to be an army soldier. I wanted to be in the infantry. And
who wants that?
Well, I'm talking like 8 years old.
G.I. Joe,
yeah,
American hero.
Yeah. So like very, very young age, I had a cousin of mine who is in the infantry. He, I think, just got back from his first tour of Iraq or something, and I thought he was the coolest guy on the planet Earth, and he influenced me a lot. And I wanted to be, just like my hero at the age of like 8 years old. So I never grew out of that phase. I always wanted to join the army. But as he very much influenced me down the direction of becoming an officer. He was enlisted, but so he wasn't an officer. But his advice to me was definitely go the officer route. And ironically, when I went to join the first interview that you do is called a U session. Your opportunities unlimited. It's a bit quirky, but it's called a U session. Good acronym. And he did that interview for me. So he was my first recruitment interview, and which helped significantly.
Yeah, right.
However, when I got to the age of doing that, I was about 16, because that's the age you're allowed to do the interview, but you're not allowed to join until 17. I realized through my own research that I actually wanted to be a clearance diver, and you can't be a clearance diver in the Army. So it's kind of like, and anyone that's in the Navy that's listening to this will probably cringe, but think about, for the uninitiated, being a clearance diver in the Navy is kind of like being infantry. They think there's a bad attitude amongst some clearance divers. Don't get me wrong, they're not all like this, but some of them a little bit egotistic and think they're special forces. But think about it like infantry for the Navy, but it's diving. So
just coming back a little bit.
Yeah.
First, when you said that you were advised to go the officer route.
Yeah.
Officer meaning that you're not someone
commissioned officer. Yeah.
No, but hang on, I'm a bit confused. What's the difference between like an officer and an infantryman? Like, is officer essentially just means you're the boss of the infantry?
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. That essentially is what it means. So you have different rank structure. If we're talking about Navy, because I'll try and keep it around Navy because that's my experience. If you're enlisted in the Navy, you're a sailor. If you're commissioned in the Navy, you're a commissioned officer. So there's different ranks.
Right.
So if you join as a midshipman, you automatically outrank the highest ranking sailor by default. Doesn't mean that in reality you're respected more than them, but not by any means. But technically you outrank them.
So what you're saying is you're still getting cucumbered.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Cucumber sandwiches, you mean? Anyway.
There was
rubber chickened.
Rubber chicken, that was it. Yeah,
rubber chicken. We won't go into
yourself and Zach are also ex-Navy sailor. I'm not sure what his position was.
Zach was a bosun's mate. He was a sailor. But yeah, Zach being my business partner in videography. But circling back, the reason I went Navy is because I wanted to be a clearance diver, and so I needed to join the Navy. So I wanted to be an MCDO, which is a clearance diving officer, effectively.
Right.
But yeah, that's why I went the Navy route over Army.
And now obviously maybe not obviously for those listening, but you're no longer in the Navy. You left earlier only this year, right? You left?
Yeah, like a month ago now.
I mean, I know there's still some technicalities, like whether you're in the reserves or whatnot, or you can still be called back if there's a war and things like that.
I'm technically in the active reserves for a minimum of 12 months. If I don't serve a certain amount of days in the active reserve, then I'll default to a step down to an inactive reserve for 3 years. And if I don't serve at all and change to active reserve, then I'm officially out.
Do you intend to?
No. Like when I discharged, I said that I was going to
just because it's what you're supposed to say.
Well, no, not necessarily, but it just makes the process easier to do active reserves if you choose to. So if I said to them, no, I don't want to do it, then it would be harder, or it'd take like one or two more steps of administration and what have you to then do active reserve days. And I mean, I haven't ruled it out completely, but I'm not planning to, but the option is there.
Right. Cool. And then, so talking about once you join the Navy, just bringing it back a little bit more to being fitness orientated, obviously that's what we talk about, Jiu Jitsu and all that sort of stuff on our episodes. Anyone who hasn't been in the military, such as myself, our understanding of what the regime, the workout, the exercise regime is like in the military is only what we see in movies, which often isn't true, or the odd documentary, unless you know someone who's been there, done that.
Yeah, you have no idea.
What was your experience and what is your opinion of the sort of fitness regime they do? And before answering that, were you already a bit of a fitness buff before you joined the Navy? Because if you had sort of no knowledge of working out and fitness, then I guess your opinion would be different to if you went in already being someone who was quite fit and knew you enjoyed bodybuilding and all that. What are your thoughts on the way that they train soldiers or clearance divers or whatever? in the military?
Just to be clear, I never was a clearance staff. I never did selection or anything like that. I failed my dive medical, and that's a big part of the reason why I left.
It got to the bit where they were like, "Okay, right now you got to swim," and you're like, "Swim."
They didn't tell me about that. I didn't sign up for this. No, I failed my they do a lung assessment, and I failed that. So I cannot medically be a clearance diver, and that is one of the biggest reasons why I left the Navy is because I joined to do a job and I was unable to do that job. It's kind of like if you join to do a pilot and you fail your pilot medical, but then they make you do something else or whatever.
Or like a doctor who becomes a vet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's exactly. It's like, yeah, ridiculous. Anyway, so back to the question. I'm gonna be very controversial here, and I'm not gonna pull any punches. The perception that the wider public has, and I can only speak to Navy. I'm not going to talk about Army or Air Force at all because I have zero experience being in those services. The perception people have of the Navy in terms of fitness and the reality are two completely different things. I can count on maybe two hands the amount of people in the Navy that I consider to be pretty fit.
Yeah, really.
And I know a lot of people in the Navy. There is a lot of overweight, lazy people in terms of fitness. Now, don't get me wrong, they do a hard job, they sacrifice a lot, they sign the dotted line to say they'll give their life for the country, and I did that as well, and I respect them completely for that. I'm not taking away from their service, but in terms of fitness, like not many people in the Navy are fit.
Is it kind of like when you see like an overweight police officer, and you're like, you're never going to catch me, bro.
Yeah.
Like if I run.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
Is that due to, I mean, we're not going to compare with the Army and the Air Force. As you said, you have zero experience.
Yeah, I'm not.
Just
I'm
from
not
your
gonna,
knowledge.
I'm not going to open myself up to that.
Yeah, because you've got too many connections who might come after you.
I know that there's going to be Navy people listening to this that, know me or whatever, and they're probably going to be, some of them may be agreeing, some of them may be offended or whatever, because honestly, I'm not even coming at it from like a position of like, an elitist where I, have a bodybuilding background. I consider myself fairly fit. But man, like the perception that the world has, or like Australia has, and the reality, they're just chalk and cheese.
Right.
Like the fitness standards are so low, like so low.
And is that because, are the fitness standards low in terms of whatever physical or whatnot that you're doing, any training you're doing is just a cakewalk, or are they low because, the exercises and the routines you're supposed to do are difficult, but they don't care whether people can do them or not?
So let me just shed some light on the mandatory fitness that you have to do, like week to week, right? So if there's two very distinct places you can be, or categories of postings you can have in the Australian Navy. One is referred to as a shore posting, where you're posted ashore, meaning you're not seagoing, and the other is the opposite of that, seagoing posting, where you are at sea. Now, there is actually, depending on where you're posted, as in your base and your command team, the people in charge of that base, depends on whether you have to do PT or not, mandatory PT. If you're under training, then you have to do mandatory PT. So when you join the Navy, if anyone out there wants to join, this is what you can expect in terms of fitness requirements. Just about every morning, you'll do early morning PT. So it's called EMA, early morning activities, and you're forced to do PT on a certain amount of days, certain amount of times throughout the week. And it's quite a lot. It's quite a decent amount. They're about 45-minute sessions, an hour, including like travel time and everything like that to the gym or whatever you're doing. And the PTIs do a fantastic job in recruiting. However, after you graduate from recruiting and you graduate from your initial employment training, so you do your, in terms of an officer, you do 6 months of training, then you leave and do your specialty training. And that's still considered under training. And the training process is a long time. So throughout that process, throughout that time, you have to attend PT. However, once you graduate from that and you're considered qualified, the amount of required PT pretty much comes to zero. For example,
but during that mandatory PT, there they're decent workouts.
Well, they are, but the thing is, you only get out what you put in.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's a circuit based training. Like
Do you
a
have
lot of it
someone
is
there?
cardio.
Do you have
and-
someone there yelling at
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
being
you
like,
have a
come on,
PTI.
you maggot.
Yeah, so they're not, that yes and no. So it's called PTI. It's a physical training instructor. So PTIs exist in the Army, Navy, and Air Force, and they used to have joint training, I believe. I don't know if they still do. I know I do have PTI friends out there, and if they're listening, they'll probably promptly correct me here. But yes, we have PTIs, and they're very well trained. They go under 12 months of training, and they come out of it with the equivalent of like a Cert 4 or maybe a diploma in fitness. They don't actually get the civilian tickets, but that's neither here nor there.
It was that's reminded me that one of my other students who Adam, who was also in the Navy, who was a clearance diver actually. Yes. You guys don't get along because you're super jealous that he was a clearance diver.
And I couldn't make it because I wasn't good enough.
But he was telling me something a few months back. It was after a competition. Here we go, back to Jiu Jitsu finally. A Jiu Jitsu competition where I came into the gym on the Monday after the weekend comp, and my voice was gone because I was there. Man, I think I was 12 or 14 hours coaching everyone. And it was during not a lockdown, but obviously the whole COVID thing. And so you could only have one coach per team. So for pretty much 12 hours, I permanently had at least one student competing. So I was yelling the whole time. And then he told me that for me to look up this thing called, I think he called it frog voice or something, that he said PTIs or drill sergeants or whatever, they learn this way of essentially yelling so they can yell all day without you losing their voice, And when you think about it, your vocal cords are a muscle, right? The same way that singers train their vocals like a muscle. These PTIs or drill sergeants would learn the technique to use this frog voice, if that's what it's called. I believe he called it frog voice. And a way to essentially yell all day without losing your voice. And he was like, man, I'm not messing around. You should have a Google of frog voice because that may help you when you're there coaching, that you can yell all day and not lose your voice.
There you go. It's the first time I'm hearing of it. Like I do know there are techniques, but I mean, I never had to do any yelling in the Navy.
You were just copping the yelling.
No, I had people to do the yelling for me. I had people no, I'm kidding. I'm not. I'm joking. But yeah, so like honestly, man, when I first joined the Navy, I thought that the fitness requirements were going to be tough. So I trained my ass off to join the Navy. I hired a personal trainer. I was doing cardio. I was doing strength endurance. I was training almost like I was training for a selection. And I got there and I lost fitness in the first 6 weeks of me being in the Navy. I got slower. I got weaker. I lost fitness. I lost cardio fitness because I was reduced to what we were doing. The PT we were doing was designed to fit everyone.
Of course.
To put it in context, when I first joined, in our first week, I think on our second or third day, we had to do a mandatory fitness test that everyone in the Navy must pass. So everyone in the Navy, to stay in the Navy, you must pass an annual fitness test. The requirements are quite low. For context, the requirements for a man is to do 30 cadence push-ups. You need to pass like a 7 something on a beep test, which is not that hard.
A 7 is super easy.
It's like 7.6 or something. It's super, super easy. And this is meant to be minimum effort. It's not meant to be max effort. Or you need to run like a 2.4 in less than 13 minutes, 2.4 kilometers in less than 13 minutes, which is, again, not difficult. And your sit-up requirement, I can't even remember, like it's feet held 30 sit-ups or something super ridiculously easy. When I first joined, day 3, everyone did the fitness test, and we had like 12 to 15 people, or probably even more people fail.
Yeah, right.
They failed the minimum requirement fitness test in the first week.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand if you're someone who's gone from doing 0 exercise that you could fail an easier test than that.
Yeah.
But if you would assume
to be joining the Navy as an officer,
you would think
fail. Like we had a significant amount.
Surely there's divisions of the military or the Navy that are way tougher. Like, I don't know what
Yes,
the
being a clearance diver has like harder requirements.
is
So
is
their
a
fitness
clearance
requirements are
diver
higher.
is a clearance diver the Australian equivalent of like a Navy
No,
SEAL?
no, they think they are, but they're not. No,
Because I
straight up
believe
no.
Navy SEAls are quite elite, right?
They
in
are
the
special
US.
forces. So clearance divers are not special forces.
What would be the equivalent of a Navy SEAL, or do we not have that?
No, we
in
have
Australia?
SAS.
SAS.
Yeah,
right.
special air service.
So that would be
Or commandos, two commando out of the Army. Army has a SF contingent called two commando, and the Air Force has one called SAS. But the elite of the elite is the SAS.
Do they then get into quite tough physical?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's they are way fitter than I'll ever be. Like
Yeah, right.
the special forces guys, I would need to train my ass off for 6 months to get to their standard. But that's what I'm saying. When people see the military, they think of what they've seen on TV. What they see on TV is special forces because
Right.
that shit's cool.
Right.
However, the reality of the everyday person in the Navy is completely different.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So in summary, when you join, you just chump fitness. But if you go into special forces, then that's quite elite level stuff.
Yeah, which is where I wanted to join clearance divers, and then I wanted to try out for tag, which is Adam, the person that trains at our gym that you were just talking about. He was in tag.
What is tag?
Tactical Assault Group. So that is
that on its way to special forces?
That is special forces.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So Adam, tag was established shortly thereafter 9/11, and it was our counterterrorism unit. So think SAS, like deploy overseas, think tag internal. Same thing, but internal. So their training is different, their equipment is specialized, and they have different contingents as members of tag. So we have tag East and tag West. I believe these days tag East is very much in-house, like counterterrorism on the East Coast sort of in Australia, and West goes more external. I'm not quite sure. My knowledge of tag is very surface level, but Adzi, the guy you were mentioning, he was one of the first members of tag, which is quite awesome.
Oh,
So,
cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's no longer in the Navy. He now sells weapons of mass destruction and stuff like that. So then how did you go from just moving a little bit away from the Navy? I personally could probably sit here and talk a long time about the Navy. Again, not because I'm a military person, but I just, just
it's
an interesting subject.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting.
But just keeping it a bit more around the fitness side of things. So then when did bodybuilding come in? We've briefly mentioned in lots of introductions that you used to be a competitive bodybuilder.
Yeah.
There's different types of bodybuilding. There's natural bodybuilding. There's whatever the other categories are called.
Real bodybuilding.
Real bodybuilding. I know there's
juicy bodybuilding.
Juicy bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's different categories.
Yep.
So where did bodybuilding come into it?
So I wanted to try my hand at bodybuilding again. Like I started really working out when I left high school. I was about 18, and that's when I started to go to the gym. I was a gym rat, went like every day, and always been interested in fitness from that moment on in my life. And I got to a point where I considered trying bodybuilding more so for the nutrition side of house. I really wanted to dial in my nutrition because I realized that, okay, I can spend 2 hours at the gym every day or 6 days a week. However, the real thing that I'm missing is a solid knowledge in nutrition. So I wanted to try bodybuilding to dial in that nutrition and see where it could take me. And I was actually influenced by someone that I met in the Navy that then directed me or made the connection to me and Zach, my business partner. So that's where I first met Zach. He was my nutrition coach for bodybuilding. He was my bodybuilding coach. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's how I met him. He was when I was introduced.
Because if you look
to him,
at Zach now, he just looks like a chump.
Yeah, he's a dad bod.
No.
No, straight up, Zach, sort your shit out.
No, no, Zach's a dude. I take it back.
Zach's a dude.
I take it back.
Yeah. So, the person that links
Sorry.
us
So
up,
just before we move on, is Zach? Because I know that you're a certified nutritionist. Is Zach as well?
Yeah. So
right.
he's got his nutrition qualifications. I'm pretty sure he ended up getting some bodybuilding nutrition specific qualifications on top of that. So yeah. So he was, when he left the Navy, he left to be a full-time bodybuilding prep coach.
Okay,
So
'cause-
he would prep bikini athletes, amateur athletes like myself in natural bodybuilding.
Because I know bodybuilders have to follow super strict nutrition plans.
Yep.
Obviously, because when they're in training, they're depending on their category and whatever, they're trying to build muscle and whatnot. And then for competition, bodybuilders are trying to get super shredded,
Yeah.
so dry,
Yep.
essentially.
The lowest I got, according to a body scan that I had, was like just over 5% body fat.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's the leanest I've ever been on paper. Was just over 5%.
And did you have were there any bodybuilders, you said you got into it mainly for the nutrition side of things.
Yeah, I just wanted to level up. Yeah.
But were you inspired by other bodybuilders? I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's
Funny. Yeah, I mean, to an extent, yeah, like the real big names back when I was competing in 2017, it was Phil Heath was still, he was on the decline, but he was still on top.
Phil Heath, correct me if I'm wrong, he's the guy who would always battle with Kai
Green. Yeah, so it's always Phil Heath versus Kai Green. Kai was never able to beat Phil, but particularly their last competition together, that was a point of contention.
I think I saw a documentary on that, and
yes, you would have.
It was a bit
kind
of controversial.
Was it? It's not Pumping Iron. It's the Generation Iron 2.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
very good.
But they're definitely not natural bodybuilders.
No, and they're not even pretending to be. Like you can't.
Not at all.
At that level, they don't openly talk about it because of sponsorships and everything like that. They don't want to be openly publicizing that they are taking illegal substances. So whenever they are asked, if they're cornered into it, they'll either avoid the question or say no because it's their livelihood. But it's not like they're pretending to be natural.
Yeah.
There's a big
Whereas
difference.
you just did natural bodybuilding.
Yeah, I did natural. So I was in a tested federation. It's called ICN. I compete natural. Apparently, there will always be people that cheat. You could take a cycle for like 3 years and then cycle off just for the competition. But I mean, they're few and far between when it comes to my level of competition. I suppose the elite level of ICN, yeah, you could argue that none of them are natural if they're not taking something. They're taking like steroids. They're taking something called SARMs.
Never heard of SARMs.
SARMs are selective androgen response modulators. They're effectively, think of them like a blend between peptides and low dose steroids.
Yeah, right. Is it an injectable as well?
No. So they're orally consumed SARMs. So they're basically experimental drugs that they developed to help treat muscle degeneration diseases, and they're very effective.
Right.
But their long-term effects and their side effects, you do have side effects when you consume SARMs, and the long-term effects aren't fully understood.
Right.
And there's a plethora of SARMs. They're so easy to get.
Are they really? Because
type in SARMs on the internet and you can get them delivered to your door.
Really?
Yep. Easily.
Yeah, right. Because I've taken types of steroids. No, I have, but they've been, medical steroids to recover from like my knee surgeries. I had trouble recovering. So completely different, right? My mum has chronic rheumatoid arthritis, so she takes certain type of steroids. Different steroids.
Steroids are very broad term.
Is a broad term,
very
right?
broad.
So I've never proactively looked at how to get steroids, but while I was living in Brazil, I remember it's so easy. Like you could get steroids pretty much from everyone, and I'm guessing it's very similar in the US.
It's very easy here. Like you
really,
oh yeah, Bitcoin. All you need is cryptocurrency, and you go online. Yeah, you always carry a certain amount of risk, but the days of like having to know someone that cooks up the roids in their like uncle's basement, they're long gone. They now have full scale professional operations. Yeah, they get shut down every now and then. However, it's still to this day, if you know how to buy crypto, which is getting, as easy as it's ever been, then you can buy steroids, as in testosterone, as in a whole bunch of other like clenbuterol, orally consumed steroids, like so many different things online. It's super easy. It's the same with SARMs, and you don't even need crypto with SARMs. You just buy them because it says on the whole reason they can get away with selling things like SARM specifically is because they're for research purposes, not for human consumption. That's how they get away.
It's that easy, bro. I'm going up a weight division.
Oh yeah, it is. It is quite easy.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, though, the long-term side effects are
Yes.
potentially
Well,
not
with
known or
SARMs,
potentially
they have
catastrophic.
similar side effects to taking testosterone, but imagine if you were taking testosterone, injecting testosterone, but a very low dose. That's the similar side effects of SARMs. So you can get some natural testosterone shutdown. So it's not something you want to fuck around with, particularly if you're under the age of like 30, 35. It's not something you want to fuck around with, in my opinion.
Well, while we're on the subject, when you were competing, did you ever go down the route of?
No, personally, I never got on steroids or anything like that. I was in the
Why
Navy.
are you winking at me right now?
I'm not winking. We literally have a video recording. You cannot hoodwink me now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know Adam is full of shit. There was no winking. My eyes were open. You fuck. So no, I was in the Navy. Even if I wanted to, the Navy, this is actually kind of funny. The Navy do get tested for steroids every now and then, but it's normally targeted tested. Navy members.
Why? Why do I mean?
Because
I get
people in the Navy take steroids. There's some people that take roids, and it's against the policy. So,
is it just? It's just for the sake of catch, of saying, oh, you're not allowed to do this, so we're going to test you.
Yeah. So there was now this story.
Do they also do just random drug tests for weed and whatever else?
Yeah. So when you join the Navy, you have to do a piss test, and they dip it for I think mostly just marijuana and some amphetamines and things like that, like a standard test. But there is a requirement to test, I think 10% or 20% of all Navy personnel every year. And we have a category of sailors called coxswains, where
That's a terrible name.
They're police coxswains. So they're naval police coxswains. It's like a traditional naval term. They are literally like our Navy police, and they run drug tests, they run breath tests, so all of that. Like even radar guns on base, things that you would assume that the police do, that's what our naval police coxswains do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you can be arrested in the Navy by Navy police.
Yeah. And then I guess when you're at sea, you would have at least one of those on board as well, right? Yep. Have you ever been on a sub?
Yes. Yeah, I've been on a submarine.
Cool. Submarines are pretty cool. I mean, the Australian submarines are, compared to what the US and that have, are pretty tragic. But
I wouldn't say that. I think they serve a different purpose. Like, we don't have nuclear subs, but without getting too nitty gritty. And again, I was not a submariner, so I'm talking very, no pun intended, surface level knowledge here.
Do we have the badum-ching on the audio?
That was so good. So very surface level, skimming the surface of my knowledge, but. Our submarines are diesel subs, so they are much more quiet than nuclear submarines.
I thought it would have been the other way around.
No. But nuclear submarines are way faster. A nuclear
sub
can
obviously stay submerged for way longer.
I'm not sure if they can. Yeah, they can. Yeah, because of snorkeling. Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Well, don't like the current US subs, when you say, snorkeling is in...
Yeah, so what a diesel sub, again, I hope I'm not fucking this up, but what a diesel submarine needs to do every every X period, like classified, they need to come to a certain depth that's considered snorkeling to vent exhaust.
Right, okay.
Charge batteries and things like that. So that's what they do. They come to a snorkel depth, so they're not on the surface, but they're technically detectable. Think like periscope, but it's not a periscope.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. Whereas, but the biggest difference between for a layman, the biggest difference between a nuclear sub and a diesel sub, not just their power generation, but how quiet they are and their speed. So a diesel sub is very slow. A diesel submarine, when it's dived, can't go very fast. Now, the exact speed of our subs is classified, and even I don't know that. But the exact speed of a nuclear sub when submerged is faster than some skimmers, some like warships. They are incredibly fast. But the downside of that is they're incredibly noisy. So they're very easy to find.
Is that because a nuclear reactor is very noisy?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not quite sure like the exact engineering as to why, but all I understand is
Kieren, I came here to hear you talk about nuclear physics, and if you're not going to deliver the goods, I'm out.
Yeah, but the funnily enough, the reason that noise obviously is so important is because that's how you
Oh,
find
it's how they track
that's
each
how
other
you
and
find
find
a
each
sub.
other. Yeah.
And it's how helicopters are the biggest danger to submarines with a dipping sonar. So that's how they find submarines.
Yeah, and I know that one of I forget the what it's called, but isn't the loudest noise generated from subs the air bubbles that come off the prop,
Yeah.
right? And they explode at
Yep.
something like the speed of sound, actually, or something,
Yeah,
right? And
it's gas. It's gas that it explodes.
and it has a name. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I'm forgetting as well. I had to learn this in my training.
Wasn't there
Cavitation. It's cavitation.
Cavitation,
Yeah.
that's it. Thank you. Wasn't there recently we should have got Jamie to Google it.
Pull it up, Jamie.
Yeah. Look at me making a Joe Rogan reference.
Oh dear.
Wasn't there recently is in recent history, for all I know it was 10 years ago, wasn't there some war games or something that was won because of an Australian sub
there's
that
a
essentially
documentary.
like sunk whatever battleship
Yep.
in this war game?
Yeah, there's a documentary on that where they sent a film crew onto a RIMPAC. So RIMPAC is every 2 years, the biggest naval war games. They're expanding it to be more involvement with shore troops now, but the biggest naval war games in the world, and it's hosted by the US Navy out of Hawaii, so Pearl Harbor, and it's called RIMPAC. And on one exercise at one RIMPAC, because there just so happened to be a film crew there, an Australian sub did very well in a particular war games and beat the American side. But I mean, that happens every 2 years. There's, it's always back and forth. When I went on,
Well,
RIMPAC,
yeah, I mean, it's war games, right? So, I mean, any
it's,
particular exercise, the
irrelevant.
odd, it's like doing specific training in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Just because so-and-so taps so-and-so,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, but you started on their back or something.
they could have been
You know,
distracted, or they could
that
have fucked up,
particular
or under training,
exercise,
or
yeah, the US could have started at a severe disadvantage. I don't know.
For
right?
example, when I was at RIMPAC 2018, our entire task group that I was in for one of the last war game serials, we got half of our task group got sunk in air quotes by a Japanese frigate that just came through or destroyer, I think it was, just came through and just fucked us all up because we weren't paying attention or whatever, and just bugged out. And then we just restart.
Was it quite fun doing the war games?
It was and it wasn't. On my particular vessel that I was on a very large ship. I was on HMAS Adelaide, a landing helicopter dock, which, think of it kind of looks like an aircraft carrier, but very, very small aircraft carrier. And we have two of them, Adelaide and Canberra. It's the ones with the big ramp on the front. Our biggest.
I see them
warship.
in Sydney all the time.
Yeah, so I drove HMAS Adelaide. Lima 01 was our pennant number. So there's Lima 01 is Adelaide, Lima 02 is Canberra. So I was on Adelaide, and I absolutely love the amphibious operations because for me, I was driving the ship, and that's what a maritime warfare officer does. That's what an officer of the watch does, which was my role in the Navy. I physically drove the ship, like gave the orders to drive the ship, not on the helm, but actually driving it. And so driving a potted ship, an amphibious ship, was an absolute blast. I really loved it. The best time I ever had in the Navy was driving HMAS Adelaide, hands down. And one of the best experiences I had on Adelaide was on RIMPAC. So yeah, it was great.
Do a lot of people who did your job and then leave the Navy go on to do jobs like drive cargo ships or cruise ships and things like that?
Yeah, some do. However,
what are the qualifications not transfer?
They do, but only recently. Historically, they never did. You had to go through the whole process again because the civilian sector didn't recognize our hours, having the con, as we call it, basically controlling the ship. So up until recently, they didn't recognize it. There was no crossover, but now there is. All you need to do is some ballasting qualifications. You need to do some other civilian.
Ballasting being like the
like
ballasting tanks, like taking the water in and out of the ship.
In the Navy, the officer of the watch doesn't have any understanding technically of ballast, only very surface level understanding of it. We have engineers that take charge of that.
Yep.
Yeah. However, in the civilian sector, their equivalent, their officer of the watch, needs to have a more robust understanding of ballasting and some other things as well. But did
that not interest you to potentially go that route? Did it even enter your mind?
No. The reason is they spend longer at sea and they get paid less money.
Well, that sounds shit.
Exactly.
It's funny because it reminds me of this girl I used to work with. I can't remember her name, but she was a pilot in the Air Force, not a fighter pilot. She used to fly like the big, I don't know what the Australian equivalent is. Yeah, does Australia have Hercules?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she used to fly those massive planes. She wanted to be a fighter pilot, but she said you get quite, I'm sure there's similar things in the Navy, but she said you get quite categorized as to what you do. And she essentially said you need to have that, for lack of a better term, that jock alpha male, I'm a prick mentality to be a fighter pilot. That's this is what she told me. You're looking at a skeptical face, but hey, you said at the start you weren't going to comment on the Air Force and Army. So
which is why I'm not commenting. I'm commenting with body language.
Maybe that was her way of saying.
Maybe it's true. Yeah,
she couldn't cut it. I don't know. But anyway, I asked her why, she didn't go into aviation when she left. And she said, man, being a commercial pilot, she said, it's just like being a glorified bus driver.
Yeah.
She said, it sucks. She goes, it's only the very not experienced, but the people who have done it for decades who get the domestic jobs.
Yeah.
So then when you don't have a domestic job, you've got an international job. And she goes, I don't want to live that life where I've got to fly all the way to Hong Kong and then sleep in a hotel and then fly back. She goes,
why
no.
would you do it? You get paid. And the pay, like speaking in the naval sector as well, like they're a way long, like a lot of sailors come to me as a divisional officer. A lot of sailors say, I want to leave. And they, it's our job to counsel them on, their plan and everything like that. And I have had sailors in the past say, I want to go into the merchant navy, and then we look at it together. We say, okay, these are the qualifications you need to have. This is where you'll end up, and this is your pay. This is your starting pay. It's pretty public knowledge, and let's map that against your current pay. Okay, and this is how many days away from home you're going to be expected to spend, and this is how many days you spend away from home now. And they're chalk and cheese. Like the merchant navy on paper, it seems cool because the grass is always green on the other side, but they work longer, as in they're away longer, and they get paid less. Why the fuck would you do that?
Have you heard the rest of that expression, or the counter expression of the grass is greener on the other side?
No, send it.
You go, if the grass is greener on the other side, water your lawn, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, water your lawn.
Did you have to have any of those conversations?
Oh, mate.
No. Hang on. Calm down, Kieren. Did you have to have any of those conversations towards the end of your time?
Yes.
And then did you just sit there and go, bro, I'm getting out too, man? Or
no.
the whole thing's being recorded, so oh man,
no, it's not recorded,
around.
but I need to separate my my personal feelings and, supporting the sailor. So toward the end of my time, I was in a training position. I was training junior maritime warfare officers in the basic principles of navigation. So I ended up subspecializing as an intermediate navigator. So I was qualified to drive small boats, as in navigate small boats, but not frigates.
Sorry, I actually don't know what a frigate is.
A frigate is warship, what you would think of as a warship. So I could drive warships, but smaller ones, smaller vessels.
Right.
So patrol boats. And I did navigate for a short period a patrol boat. But I was in a training position, so I didn't have sailors under me. I had junior officers under me, so not many of them wanted to get out because they'd been in for 10 years and they're ready to move on, or work-life balance. They were very much at the beginning of their careers. They're still under training, so that was less common. And yeah.
Was it hard learning how to navigate, considering you think the Earth is flat?
No, it's quite easy because if you think the Earth is flat, when you're looking at a chart on a table, the table's flat as well.
Exactly how it is as well.
Yeah, you just map to ground. It's identical.
Nice.
Makes it easier.
So easy, bro.
Yeah.
So we kind of went, Kieren doesn't think the Earth is flat, by the way. So we kind of went but before we started recording, we were talking conspiracy theories a little bit.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about the moon landing and how it never happened. No,
Yeah.
we didn't say that. We didn't say that at all. So we went Navy bodybuilding, back to Navy. So next, I think in the timeline was videography.
Yeah.
Because you were already doing, in terms of what I don't know everything that happened in your timeline, but from what I know of your major milestones, if you will,
Yeah.
of in your timeline. You were already into videography before I met you.
Yeah.
And our first interaction was Jiu Jitsu.
Mm.
So then how did videography, did you always have a passion for photography / filming?
No, not at all. So that's actually quite a weird one, how it ended up coming about. And I suppose it started, which may sound a little bit weird at first, but when I got my personal training qualifications. So when I was in the Navy, well, before I joined the Navy, I wanted to be, like, in the back of my mind, I thought it would always be cool to be a PT, a personal trainer, because, you know, you would have more knowledge about fitness and, you know, I was very interested in fitness. So my backup plan, if you will, if I didn't get into the Navy when I wanted to, like straight away, I was going to get my PT qualifications and then obviously reapply. But I got in, so I didn't do that. But whilst I was in, I thought, well, fuck it, why not get my PT qualifications? So I actually I was studying my PT qualifications whilst I was still under training in the Navy, because I was, you know, in the later parts of my training, I was having an easy time with it. Like, I didn't find it too difficult. So I was studying on the side as well. So I continued to study, get my PT qualifications and get nutrition certified and all that good gear. But circling back, why that has anything to do with videography is I started a business which I no longer really operate under this business name anymore.
Your RTC
RTC Fitness. Yeah. It's funny you got that right the first time, and Zach has known me since I started it and always fucks it up. Yeah, he calls it RCT or
you know what? I think the reason I got
whatever.
it, I think the reason I got it right is because whenever I email you, I start typing your name and I get your, and you know, Gmail gives me your RTC Fitness email, your Ground 9 Productions email, and your personal Gmail. And I get all three of them pop up. So I always see it.
Yeah, right. There you go.
And I'm not an idiot like Zach.
Yeah, fucking hell. It's
I'm bagging on Zach, but he's a lovely dude. We've said, I think the first time or multiple times when his name's come up. Exactly. We've mentioned that we'll have him on the show at some stage.
Yeah, the audience is probably dying to hear his bullshit. Anyway.
Yeah, only if he brings his dog. He's got to bring Lucy.
Yeah, exactly. Lucy will sit in front of the
What
camera.
do you think, Lucy? Imagine, she probably could.
She loves me. Lucy, I'm Lucy's boyfriend.
I've
She
never
loves
met
me.
Lucy. Zach has a beautiful German Shepherd. She's famous. What's the Instagram handle?
Lucy Lane, the Queen of Balmain, which he's going to have to change that now because he's moved to Edgecliff.
To Edgecliff.
Lucy Lane, the Queen of Edgecliff.
Doesn't have the same.
No, it
ring.
doesn't. I think he just should change it to Lucy Lane, famous GSD or something like that.
Yeah,
German Shepherd
but she's
dog.
a beautiful German Shepherd.
Yeah.
We'll have her on the show. Actually, Zach doesn't even have to come.
Yeah, we'll just bring Lucy.
Just bring Lucy.
Yeah.
So you started a business, RTC Fitness.
Started the business, and through that, like if anyone has ever been in the fitness industry, they understand that the industry these days, particularly if you're an online personal trainer, which I was because I was in the Navy, I couldn't do face-to-face PT. I didn't have the time, so I had to run the business delivering online remote services like nutrition and fitness programs online and being an accountability coach, all that stuff. But I needed to run the business through social media. That is your bread and butter. Social media, you're a marketer before you're a business owner in today's world, particularly in the fitness industry. So I started to slowly skill acquire in videography and social media content creation. And through that process of learning and practicing and getting hands on the tools in videography, in editing, in some photography work as well, I found that I actually enjoyed that vastly more than the personal training and the nutrition coaching.
So it just kind of organically became something that you wanted to do.
Yeah. And then I only started to take it seriously in terms of a career when I partnered up with Zach and we started doing a lot of videography stuff together and a lot of opportunities would come up.
Did Zach also just, with zero connection to you, happen to go down that path as well?
So Zach got into it before me by about a year or more, about a year and a half. He started really getting into videography and photography when he got Lucy. So his origin story is actually published in newspapers and things. He's had articles written on him. And what he says was his inspiration behind filming and taking photos of Lucy, and I'm sure he'll come on and tell you this himself, but was that he met someone that told him that this person that he met had a German Shepherd and regrets not taking more photos of his dog when it was a puppy. So he's like, okay, I'm going to learn from this guy's mistakes and I'm going to get a camera when I get the dog and take more photos of Lucy as a puppy. And he started uploading them. Lucy's presence exploded. He really, narrowed down his skill set as well. So he started to develop his skill set. I developed my skill set through a different sort of niche, a different area. And then we both had this, we're really good friends. We both had this really shared interest. So we decided to partner up and build these videography
which is now Ground 9 Productions.
Yeah. So
Do you guys both bring something different to your partnership?
I bring most.
You bring most of it.
I bring most of everything, and Zach's just there for. He's like a soundboard to bounce ideas off of. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Is that true? Or
It depends what you mean by true.
But would, for example, does Zach maybe have a bit more expertise in still photography?
Yes, he does.
And you're a bit more editing or?
Yeah, 100%. You've just nailed it. So Zach is the photographer. He obviously is a videographer as well. I think we're both fairly on a similar level when it comes to videography, but Zach is head and shoulders above me in terms of photography. It's not really my interest, photography in itself. I'm very much more interested in videography, which it might, like, for those listening that haven't really done much of either may think, well, what's the difference? But they are very, very different. The techniques are different. The equipment you need is different. Even the cameras can be very vastly different. So,
I mean, I've worked with you guys with Ground 9 Productions a couple of times. I've done a couple of recording sessions with you, and I've been super happy with the video and the stills that have come out from it.
Yeah.
Not all of it has been posted or published yet. It was content that we captured essentially as marketing content, and due to the lockdown I haven't really bothered releasing a lot of it, but some people can catch some of it on my Alliance Sydney BJJ Instagram. I know you've done some work for Bulletproof, for BJJ.
Scramble. We've done
for Scramble as well. You
Yeah.
did Technically for Jeremy Skinner's instructional.
Yeah, when Scramble released like a belt, we like a new product, we did a shoot for that.
And you had a lot of projects lined up that then unfortunately got put on the back burner due to the lockdown. But man, I can say from my experience, I've been super happy working with Ground 9, and I think it's been a great business market for you to start working, because you're incredibly good at it. Like, honestly, and I've spoken to lots of people or even just students, whenever I do post a photo or a video that Ground 9 captured for me at the gym, they're like, man, oh my God, that looks so good. There's some little videos where I've taken snippets from videos and posted them, and the camera work and the music that goes with it. I mean, really good. I've been super happy with it. So I'm actually really impressed with what you guys do. And
thanks, man.
And I mean, and actually kind of piggybacking off that, I should give props to you for even this podcast wouldn't exist without you. I know I bring the goods. But
you're the talent.
It's when we first had the conversation about, hey, should we do a podcast together? It was a bit like that, I kind of said, actually, I've kind of got, I have Jungle Brothers and you really to thank for this. I mean, yes, I have my wife to thank for everything in my life. She supports me through everything. But it was the fact that I was on the Jungle Brothers podcast a couple of times. I've been on it a few times. I did an episode not that long ago. But you would listen to some of my episodes or something, and you said, man, you speak really well and you've got lots of good anecdotes. You should do a podcast. And that was just in conversation one day. And then it was a lot of time passed and the conversation came up again. And I think I kind of said something like, oh, I could do a podcast, but man, I really, I don't know much about recording and uploading, and I kind of don't really want to learn it either, and then that kind of turned into the conversation of, you're the one who said it. You're like, well, man, you're the talent and I can do the whatever. And which I don't think's the case. Kieren's got plenty of talent. But that, I have Jungle Brothers to thank for giving me the opportunity to be on their podcast. And then you for being able to do all this recording. You're the one who records the episodes and uploads them to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And not only that, you do some audio editing. We've had a lot of feedback about how good our audio is. And that's all you, right? Like I don't do any of that. You're the one who who I don't know, filters or edits the audio. And if you do listen to our podcast compared to some other podcasts, man, our audio is really good. Like
we are so much better than all the
yeah, no, but like it is good, right? Like the audio is really clean, really nice. And yeah, I think without Jungle Brothers and without you, like I would have never done this really.
Yeah, but I think that,
and that's and then sorry, I got to that point by saying, you know, yeah, you're not an audio engineer, but it's all your work with videography and editing and software and, you know, knowing how to use Adobe and uploading stuff. You've got your YouTube channel as well. So all that knowledge has allowed you to set up a recording studio for us and then edit that audio and upload it to Spotify and whatnot, all because of the work you do with Ground 9.
Yeah, that is true. That is definitely true. So, I mean, particularly when you're a business owner as well, you're not just because if you leave the Navy, it's a pretty big step, and a lot of people leave the Defense Force and try and go into like a job. But when you leave and then create your own business, you have to do everything. So you have to, like, if we have a project for someone, we have to do all the recording, the editing, the delivery, absolutely everything, including audio. We don't outsource at this stage. We don't outsource anything. So I think it's through doing so many a diverse array of projects, like working with, the YouTube, doing my own YouTube channel, working with a podcast that I've worked on in the past, or like doing.
That's right. You did have a podcast in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you listen to that compared to this, you'll see the progression in my audio editing.
I've listened to some podcasts, man, that are, that have I don't know what they're recorded on, like a potato, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
the gear helps.
Part of me doesn't want to rag on them because I don't know what their position is. Maybe it was someone who, has no money or whatever, and all
records off their phone.
Yeah, and all they have is their phone, but they're still, that's a great thing about technology. Your phone can be enough of a tool to allow you to step onto a platform like Spotify or whatever.
So long as your content's good. Content is king.
However, we took a different route. We looked at a few options for getting started, and obviously we started at difficult times financially, so we had to make a choice. But I was from the beginning of a belief where I thought, well, man, the product is audio.
Yeah.
So the audio has to be good.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've listened to some other podcasts that are just so bad, and you can tell, right? You listen to some generic podcast and then you listen to Joe Rogan which obviously level, Joe Rogan is as good as it gets, right?
Yeah,
exactly. It's essentially a radio station quality, right? Super, super professional. And it makes a massive difference in the
viewing or the listening experience, you should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree.
And then from Ground 9, you were already doing that. How finally getting to Jiu Jitsu? We briefly in some other episodes we've mentioned you joining Alliance. You had done a class before at a Gracie gym.
Gracie Baja.
Yeah, but because of still being in the Navy, and I think you got posted somewhere else or whatever.
I was seagoing at the time,
Right,
so I couldn't make the commitment. Like I wasn't around enough. I was still under training, and I actually did the trial with a bunch of Navy mates. I think there was 3 or 4 of us that went. And none of us joined up because there was a couple of things. First, we were pretty junior, so we weren't getting paid a lot, so the money was an issue. Second, the money was an issue because we weren't going to be around. So
yeah, of course. Yeah.
It was like, okay, do we commit to this when we're not actually going to be here? But I loved it. I fucking loved it. I did 2 trials. They let me do 2 because I loved it that much. And I was like,
the fact that when you came in and joined Alliance and started training with me, was that because you were still buzzing, or you still knew you liked it enough from those initial trials?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was still something I always, through that whole period, I wanted to pursue. I wanted to do BJJ.
So then why you started training with me, obviously that just logistically made sense.
Yep.
My gym is logistically the closest to the
was
base,
literally along my
Watson's
running
Bay base or whatever it's called.
It was along my running track. I would run past your gym like I think 3 times a week when I do my little 5K loop, I'd run past, I'd like
You'd stop, breathe on the windows.
Yeah, have a cheeky little
and I'll be like,
sneak
move
in.
along, you stupid mouth breather.
Sometimes you're doing technique. Sometimes I remember literally watching you guys run around in the circle. I remember,
And you were like, I can do that.
yeah, I can run in a circle. What the hell? What you do, all sorts of stuff. I'd see at different points of the classes, but I'd always see it. I knew it was there. I knew it was there for years because I'd driven past it even. So I knew it existed. And you're going to hate this, but the reason, the biggest thing that really put it into the forefront of my mind again was starting to listen to Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh, I remember you've told me this.
I'm not gonna lie, it's because I started listening to Joe Rogan podcast
With
again.
Eddie Bravo, and they talked about doing LSD.
No. But I listened to Joe Rogan years and years ago, but I stopped listening to it for whatever reason. And then Zach, he started listening to it and he got me back onto it. Jiu Jitsu would come up a lot, and Jocko Willink as well. I really love his podcast, particularly having a military background. I can relate to a lot of what he's saying, and he is a massive proponent. He's probably more Jocko's influence than Joe Rogan's, but still, both of those very infamous,
Was there
famous
something
people.
in particular they said, or was it just the fact that Jiu Jitsu would come up?
I think it would just remind me of the original reason why I wanted to train Jiu Jitsu way back when I did the trial at Gracie Barra.
So what was so we didn't answer that. What was the original reason that you went into that Gracie gym back in the day to try jiu-jitsu for the first time?
So the original reason was purely because I felt like it's hard to sort of explain in a logical sort of sense without having like my internal monologue and emotion behind it. But it was the fact that I was walking around in a world without knowing how to defend myself in any way, shape or form. It was the fact that I might have been a bigger guy because I was really into fitness. I did bodybuilding and everything. I had muscle, but I knew that when it came down to it, I had no fucking idea about what to do in any situation. I didn't, and I've been in situations.
The particular path you chose in the Navy, surely there's some careers in the Navy that teach hand-to-hand combat and things like. Not even
like there is a course, but it's like a 1 week course. It's very, very basic. It's never refreshed.
What are you learning in 1 week?
Exactly. It's a 1 week course and it's a lot of it is like knives and maybe they do some jiu-jitsu. I've never done it. I've never had to do it. It's a requirement to do certain qualifications like boarding party. If you want to be on a boarding party, you need to do this course, like this self-defense. It's actually run by our PTIs and they're not black belts or anything. They just teach the course. And even they will say, look, you don't really get much out of it. It's a requirement that they teach you something, but like that.
Just pull out your M4, bro.
Exactly. Even honestly, even people in, I haven't spoken to them personally, but I have friends that, have connections with people in special forces. Like our defense force is quite small, and even people in 2 Commando or like in the special forces will say, "Look, man, we don't know how to fight. Like they know how to kill with weapons. Like they are trained to operate weaponry. The amount of times they're going to have unarmed combat with someone is
so slim, right?
It's like slim to none,
and it only gets the chance of hand-to-hand combat without a weapon or hand-to-hand combat at all just gets slimmer and slimmer, right?
Exactly, as technology increases.
Yes, the distance the drones can fly and ICBMs, it's not even almost needed. Like
but I mean, when would someone in 2 Commando be in a situation where they don't have a rifle, they don't have a knife, they don't have any weapons at all, and then the person they're facing doesn't have any weapons at all, and they're fucking doing jiu-jitsu? It's not practical. Jiu-jitsu for me was more like being in environments of like, around people that are drinking or being in a position where someone could attack me and I knew.
And you're like, shit, left my Glock at home.
Exactly. And this was heavily influenced, and this is going to be a bit of a shout out if he's listening, to a guy named Dwayne Shepard. Dwayne is a guy that I joined the Navy with, and he was an ex-Muay Thai professional fighter, and he had done a fair amount of jiu-jitsu as well, I think up until the level of maybe blue belt or something like that. But he would take on like 2 or 3 of the guys because under training, you all live together in like communal blocks and it gets very, particularly the lads, we get pretty lad with each other.
A group of 20-year-old guys,
exactly. Young dudes, we fuck around, we, wrestle and shit. And we always
rub a chicken in each other.
Rub a chicken up the butt. But no, we always fuck around, like, a bit of rough play as like young men do. And like he would just fuck us all up, like just demolish us, like just with basic jiu-jitsu. Looking
Yeah,
back
yeah,
on it,
yeah.
super, super basic. Like, you know, even white belt level.
Are you
like,
calling him out now, are you?
Oh, I'm fucking calling him out. Dwayne Shepherd, if you're listening, mate, and when you come back to Sydney, come to Lions Up.
Is he still in the Navy?
Yes, he's still in the Navy. I don't want to give too much of his backstory around, particularly as outed him out, but yeah, he's still in the Navy.
Yep.
But he's really, really awesome guy. And he would just mess us all up, like, you know, like rag dolls, right? Just with real basic jiu-jitsu and the fact that he had a very, like he was a ex-professional fighter. So he knew what he was doing. And that to me highlighted the fact that I was about the same size as him, but the level between us was just astronomical. And I'm talking an untrained person versus just think white belt level or like experienced white belt. And that was like, holy shit, I know nothing. I cannot defend myself. And I've been in like a couple of street scraps before. And just thinking back on those experiences, it could have gone way worse. I knew absolutely nothing. I didn't want to feel that way anymore. I didn't want to be confronted in those situations and not know how to handle myself. And jiu-jitsu from the UFC just looks amazing. Like very, very effective, highly effective. I watched the first UFCs and saw how crazy effective jiu-jitsu was. I wasn't one of those spectators that watched UFC and was like, oh, stand them up, it's boring. I was, I didn't really know what was going on, but it was very interesting. It was very effective. So yeah, those are the biggest reasons. And then I went with Dwayne to Gracie Barra to do a trial. And it was quite funny. He was like apparently untrained and he was doing like specific rolling with like some white belts or whatever. He was fucking toweling them up. It was hilarious.
So good.
Yeah, it's so funny. They were not having it.
And then I just want to then kind of sum it up in a similar fashion that we would with a guest on the show. What's next? Oh, I hate saying like, what's next for Kieren? But I mean, you only recently left the Navy, ground out of your current projects, if you think Ground 9, Jiu Jitsu and the podcast, they've kind of happened in that order. So Jiu Jitsu's been happening for about a year. The podcast even newer than that. Ground 9 Productions has been around for
just over a year, I think. Yeah.
Oh, as well. Okay.
Yeah,
so
about 18 months. Man, time's flying. I think.
One or
I
two,
think it's been about 80 months. I think start of last year we started it. So yeah.
So what are your overall goals? What are your plans? I know that from you and I speaking, you really want to train a lot and compete a lot. We got to ignore COVID for a minute because that's definitely slowed everything down. But I know for those who don't know, right, because I'm kind of the only one who knows what your jiu-jitsu goals are, what are you planning in the coming years?
I have one goal in jiu-jitsu, and that's to get a blue belt. That's
And then if you go back and listen to why people quit jiu-jitsu, shortly we'll be addressing why Kieren quit jiu-jitsu.
I do want to, like, another reason why ignoring the first reason why I went to do the trial initially, like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. I think it was about 4 years ago now. But ignoring all that, the reason that I started jiu-jitsu, like formally, those reasons, plus that I wanted to pursue a sport. I wanted to be an athlete because I'd done bodybuilding, and yeah, I mean, you are an athlete to a sense, but you're not really doing an active sport. It's not something you can do every weekend. You know what I mean? You do, a couple of shows back to back, and then you go on off season because it's very taxing on your body, like hormonally and everything involved in cutting weight. So I really wanted to pursue a sport, and I've always wanted to do jiu-jitsu. So the stars aligned there, and it's perfect. So I really want to try and see how far I can compete. I'm starting jiu-jitsu very late in life. Like I started when I was 25. So
I started about the same. I mean, it's just the unfortunate nature of a sport that grows.
Yeah.
20 years ago, you could start jiu-jitsu in your mid-20s and go on to become one of the best black belts in the world.
Not anymore.
But the sport is just...
Because the best black belts are my age or younger.
Yeah, man, the up-and-coming black belts are, probably one of the newest ones is Mika Galval, who got his black belt below the IBJJF age.
There you go. Was he like 16 or
17? I think he got it. I was the same. Even when I started over a decade ago, I started jiu-jitsu in my mid-20s. And when I started, I really wanted to go on and become a world champion. That was my goal. But
You did make it to the Worlds though.
I never went to the Worlds, unfortunately. I won.
Worlds, right?
Oh yeah, I've been to the Masters Worlds. I won selective competitions that flew me to fight the Pan Ams and stuff. But yeah, I never went to the Worlds. It was a bit financially difficult for me living out of Brazil. Amongst other things, I had multiple surgeries and whatever. But even when I started, you know, in my mid-20s, the current black belt world champions were them in their mid-20s as well.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, okay, I'm a white belt and I'm 25, and the current black belt world champion is 24 or whatever it was. And
Gordon Ryan and I are the same age, so like, there you go.
Yeah, but still, you want to see how far you can go.
I want to see. I want to see how far. I think as we were talking, many
doesn't
many
mean
times,
you can't achieve great things.
Yeah,
in
of course,
jiu-jitsu.
of course. But as we were talking, I think at that I really want to take it for a run at blue belt. I want to see, because realistically, I can expect to be like 3 or 4 years at blue belt. So I want to really see where I can go in that belt, and purple belt, of course. But you know, by the time I get to purple belt or brown belt, I'd be like around that masters level. So still the same, but I really want to see where I can go in jiu-jitsu in a competitive scene. See if I, first of all, see if I can do it. See if I, you know, have what it takes, air quotes, and see if I enjoy it. But I really want to harness like what I know about fitness, what I know about mobility, what I know about nutrition, and put it toward an actual sport and see what comes of that.
Kieren, Blue Belt Worlds 2022.
More like 2024.
Yeah, whenever we can get on a plane again.
That's it.
Nice, bro. Well, I actually enjoyed learning a bit more about your history. Some of the stuff I already knew, but honestly, I had to cut it off earlier on. I could have just sat here and gone.
Maybe,
yeah. I mean, I just find a lot of that stuff interesting. You know, guess it's people are interested in you and hearing your story, but maybe beyond jiu-jitsu, we could call this episode Beyond Navy. I don't know.
Beyond Kieren Lefebvre?
Yeah.
This episode's going to get like 10 listens.
No, honestly, well, obviously.
They're going to be like my mom, my brother.
I know, every time I speak to my mum, shout out to my mum, she's like, I'm really enjoying your episodes.
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
great.
All right, mum. Yeah. My mum's a legend. I mentioned before, she's got chronic rheumatoid arthritis. And speaking about sports and achieving goals, my mum pushes through that and does endurance horse riding. It's where they ride for like 160 kilometers, and it'll take place over a weekend, and they'll start a race at like 2 a.m. Think like ultra running, like ultra marathon running, but on horses.
Sorry, that's not easy, I should say.
Yeah, super hard.
Yeah.
And if you think the majority of her rheumatoid is in her hands. So imagine holding onto the reins. For those who don't know, the ropes that you hold onto on a horse that are connected to the bridle, the bit in the horse's mouth that you pull on, they're called the reins, right? Imagine holding onto the reins of a horse for hours and hours when you've got chronic rheumatoid arthritis in your hands, you know? Yeah. But I think it's, you know, she's super driven and loves it so much. And I feel I'll kind of maybe be like that with jiu-jitsu. I'll get to the point in my life where
rocking a coral belt and you're still on the mats.
No, but you know, I might walk in the gym with a walking stick. I struggle to get up out of the chair, but once you're on the mats and like you're doing it and you're rolling, it seems like you have no ailments.
Yeah.
You know?
He's hitting on my platter and bloody on a 20-year-old.
I'll be there next week. That'll be me. Yeah, nice, bro. But obviously we're going to hear more about what you do, what you've done just in banter throughout the episodes. So I'll look forward to hearing more about it. Next episode, though, we're going back to solely jiu-jitsu, and we're talking a bit more about how you should choose your training partners, you know, in the gym. What's a good training partner or a bad training partner? How do you drill and things like that? Because sometimes people actively avoid certain people in the gym.
Yep.
Right. And
I can talk about that.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about that next episode. Kieren, give us the outro plug.
So if you enjoyed this show, please follow us on Spotify or your streaming platform of choice.
I would go as far to say just follow us even if you didn't enjoy it.
Yep. just follow us. But if you've listened to an hour and 14 minutes and you haven't enjoyed it, I worry for your mental health and your life choices. However, I do want to do a big shout out. We do have a Patreon page now established. You can find that by jumping over to Patreon, the website, .com and searching in Beyond Jiu Jitsu. If you're not aware what Patreon is, it's just a site that enables people to support creators or content creators just like us and just show support so we can continue producing these episodes and do what we do. So if you want to go that extra mile and show a bit of support and shout Adam a coffee or get me a haircut, then
Kieren needs a haircut.
That's why I'm wearing a beanie.
For anyone who's watching the recorded episode, right, the video recorded episode, Kieren's rocking a beanie because his hair's so atrocious.
So shout me a haircut over at our Patreon.
Yeah, it's also, you can also find a link on our Instagram bio.
Yes, or jump over to our Instagram at Beyond Jiu Jitsu _podcast and click the link tree there. And that's where you can find our Patreon and all of our goodies over there. On our Patreon, we are going to be doing some Ask Me Anythings, Ask a Black Belt, and some live Q&As, and probably maybe
nudes?
I haven't
some nudes. We doing
maybe
nudes?
maybe some
We're doing nudes.
some dong shots. And I haven't run this by Adam yet, but I'm going to do it live on air. We'll maybe in the future, depending on what people want to see on our Patreon, we'll be doing some live jiu-jitsu actual technique stuff over there. Perhaps.
Yeah, why not? We can do that.
There you go. You've heard it here first. Just agreed, live on air. But yeah, so check out all of our socials, support the show, show us some love, and thanks for listening. Until next time.
See you later.